Hi, Cory Geiger along with Neil Rudel, our PSU Presser. Neil, Penn State comes off the bye week, 4 straight wins going to Iowa, a place they haven't won since 1999. This is always a very difficult challenge for Penn State.
Yeah, they allegedly didn't win there either.
Yeah, exactly, right. They didn't vacate that one, right.
Yeah. You know, I got the sense that Bill O'Brien, coming off the bye week, I saw a lot of energy in Bill O'Brien today. He's clearly engaged. A couple things happened off the field that he reacted to right away. Stephon Morris got loose on Twitter saying that we hate Iowa, Iowa hates us, something like that, and O'Brien nipped that in the bud pretty quickly. But I just saw energy coming off the bye week. I think this is going to be a great game.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic when you look at it. Kirk Ferentz been at Iowa since 1999. He's the longest tenured coach in the Big Ten. And now you've got a first-year head coach in Bill O'Brien. And I think that's pretty fascinating because the history of this league with the Bo Schembechlers, the Woody Hayeses, obviously Joe Paterno, some coaches, some legends in this league over the course of a long time. Here you have a guy at Iowa who has done a good job, although he's had some difficulties at times. He's the longest tenured coach in this league.
Yeah, well, you're into clearly a transition of a lot of places, obviously here in Ohio State. And, 14 years, I can remember in 2000 when they came in here, and Ferentz, I think at that point was like 1-18 or 2-17, some ungodly number. He was really on the ropes. They came in here, they won in double overtime on a real sudden defeat, and that kind of served as a springboard for them because then they became a pretty model program for a while.
What you get with Iowa is a tough physical football team. This will be the toughest physical challenge that Penn State has faced. Now, Saturday was interesting because it was a bye week. I was home. We don't generally, because we're covering Penn State on Saturdays, we don't generally get to watch a lot of college football on Saturdays. But I watched most of the Iowa-Michigan State game, and that was an ugly, ugly football game. Michigan State really struggled offensively. Iowa doesn't have a great offense, but what Iowa can do, they will line up and they will punch you in the mouth. They will play a tough physical style of football, and I'm really interested to see how this Penn State football team will handle that.
Yeah. You'll see more of Joe Paterno and Kirk Ferentz than you'll see in most other coaches. He's very patient in a run-oriented game. You recall here a few years ago, it's like 10-5, 5 minutes to go.
Patient.
Very, very patient, sticking with the run. Took a safety one year in a 6-4 win over Penn State because Penn State couldn't kick a field goal. Can they kick a field goal this week? A lot of strategy and a lot of physicality versus Iowa.
It's a night game at Kinnick Stadium, and that's a tough place to play. You remember the 2008 game out there where Iowa came back from the fourth quarter deficit and spoiled Penn State's undefeated regular season.
Should have played Pat Devlin that day.
Yeah, sure. Darrell Clark really, really struggled in that game 2 weeks after the concussion against Ohio State. Now, Iowa has a good field goal kicker. This is the kind of game, we'll get to our score predictions in a minute, but this is the kind of game where field goals really come into play. The kid made 4 against Michigan State, including a 42-yarder in overtime that ended up winning the game. In this kind of game, points are at a premium.
Yeah, no question. Although Penn State has kind of broken out offensively better the last couple weeks, you looking for a pick now?
No, we'll get to the picks in a minute, but just points, the way these teams play, it's going to be tough.
But I did get the sense in this press conference that he gained a little more confidence in Ficken and Butterworth, and they paid more attention to special teams during the bye week. So we'll see how that transcends, whether he tries to give him an early shot to build some confidence from 30 to 40 range.
And you've got to do it on the road in front of a very hostile crowd. That is a good Iowa crowd out there in Iowa City. Now, Mark Weisman, Iowa's standout running back, 4 straight 100-yard games, ankle injury on the touchdown against Michigan State. He's not really expected to play. Kirk Ferentz addressed him earlier Tuesday. Not really expecting to see Mark Weisman. They've had all kinds of issues at the running back spot, and frankly, Neil, James Vandenberg has not done a very good job at quarterback, so I'm not really sure how Iowa's going to move the football against Penn State.
Yeah, you would expect more of a lower scoring game. That's what it usually is. And I'll be curious to see how Penn State responds to that, especially with the open date. You would have to think that they're going to install, I'm not saying necessarily a trickery, but maybe some things that we haven't seen so far. This has been a very innovative offensive staff. Wouldn't surprise me if they broke out something that they haven't shown to this point.
And that's the contrast. An innovative offensive staff, offensive head coach versus a Kirk Ferentz who would love to win every game 10-7. You get the feeling. But very different style of football. This is what's great about college football. In the NFL, a lot of coaches really kind of think the same. They do a lot of the same things. In college football, it's system, it's schemes, it's styles. We're going to see two very, very different style of head coaches on Saturday.
You are, but you also are going to see people that are familiar with each other. O'Brien probably has more relationship on the Iowa staff than he's had with anybody so far. Brian Ferentz, who is an assistant coach at Iowa, was one of his better friends. They were on the New England staff together. And, of course, Kirk Ferentz and Bill O'Brien spent time under Bill Belichick.
All right, so we'll get to the pick. Iowa's favored by 3 points.
That surprised me a little bit.
We both kind of thought Penn State might be favored by a point or two.
Well, it's interesting. You saw the other night, Central Michigan beat Iowa, and Navy crushed Central Michigan, and Penn State crushed Navy, although Navy has a new quarterback now. I was surprised that Iowa is favored, but this is a place you go on the road. This is, they have a good history themselves. They got a pretty good sized stadium. Unlike the lower tier of the Big Ten, the Minnesotas, although they have a nice stadium, Indiana, Illinois, that I think struggle for support. I think Iowa has that. I picked at Penn State 23, Iowa 20.
All right, and I've got Penn State winning as well. This is a very difficult game for me. I kind of went back and forth. I literally made my pick right before we started doing this video. I'm going to go Penn State 17-13 because I just don't think Iowa has the type of weapons offensively that can really hurt Penn State. Now, do many teams in the Big Ten? No. I still think a lot of teams that throw the ball very well or even pretty well could probably hurt Penn State, but James Vandenberg has had a really rough season without Mark Weisman, the running back. I just don't know what Iowa's going to do to move the ball, and I think Sam Ficken's going to have to make at least one field goal, at least one, because their kid's probably going to make a couple. I'll go Penn State, give them the benefit of the doubt, 17-13, but I think it could really, it's a swing game because it could go either way.
Yeah, and I think that, it's the first game of the second half of the season of clearly a more rugged stretch than Penn State has endured over the first half of the season. And this is a big game.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's a big game because if they lose this, win or lose, you got Ohio State coming here next week, and that's going to be a very, very difficult game. So you got a chance to go into that game with a lot of confidence, or you can go out to Iowa and lose, and then you're talking about potentially a 2-game losing streak, and we'll see where it goes from there. All right, for Neil Rudel, I'm Cory Geiger, Tim Shane on the video. Thanks so much for tuning in.